Hello and welcome to Niaga Spotlight with me, Tamina Kausji. Niaga Spotlight goes through the week in economic analysis and future affairs. Well, this week on analysis, we're actually taking a really good look at digital advertising with a focus on localized strategies that are having a global impact. A couple of fact points before we get started off though. Now, Malaysia's digital advertising market is projected to surpass over 3 billion ringgit in value by the end of the year 2024, which is nigh. And this is particularly looking at strong growth in social media, search and video advertising. Now, digital ad spending is also expected to continue growing at a double-digit pace. And this is as companies continue shifting to far more digitized platforms. Now, let's take a snapshot from the recent Singles Day or 11/11 mega annual sales. Well, basically, this shopping festival has become a global e-commerce phenomenon, and Southeast Asian countries like Malaysia are also emerging as a hub for a lot of innovative digital advertising. Now, this year's 11/11 sale saw ad volumes across the region grow exponentially, with leading brands launching hundreds of thousands of targeted campaigns, which was an increase of up to 500% compared to just last year in 2023. Now, this underscores the competitive landscape as well as the role of creativity in driving further consumer engagement. But is there a ceiling to all this? Well, we delve into all of that and more with Jonathan Egg, who's founder and CEO with Partipost, who joins me online now to discuss the evolution of digital advertising around Southeast Asia. Hi, Jonathan. Good morning. How are you doing today?
Hi, thank you for having me here.
Fantastic. So, Jonathan, let's get straight into the discussion. Let's talk a little bit about bridging brands and consumers through nano and micro influencers and what Partipost in particular has actually noted with regards to your data tracking from the recent 11/11 shopping festival time period.
Sure. I thought maybe I could, give a brief description of, what Partipost does and what we're doing. So essentially, Partipost is a influencer platform, right? So we work with a bunch of influencers, or you can think of it as an influencer agency on steroids, right? And we have a bunch of different. We built a bunch of different technology into it, and so with the technology, we're able to help a lot of our brands, our clients, with their marketing budgets to be able to access and connect to all these different types of influencers. And I think with this platform that we built over the last several years, I think one of the focus that we have is on what we call micro or nano influencers, as you said just now. So these micro or nano influencers are actually, you can have maybe as little as 1,000 followers or friends on, social media, and you have that little bit of micro nano influence. That's where the term comes from, right? So so I would say essentially that's what we've been doing over the last few years, and we've been in Malaysia since 2021, and the team there is doing great. But back to your question about I think 11/11, right?
That's right, exactly.
Yeah. So 11/11 has been it's definitely for not just for Malaysia, for the region and other places too, I'm sure. It's been the most hectic time for us, right? We work with a bunch of brands, and it's not just 11/11, but moving towards that 9/9, 10/10, and then I think the biggest one is that 11/11, shopping sales, discounts, and our team works till well over midnight, just to kind of make sure all the promotions, all the advertisements through our influencers has been delivering the right value and ROI, to the brand. So it's been a very hectic period for us.
Absolutely. So delving a little deeper into the fact that hectic period aside, one other distinct feature, Jonathan, of late is that there is a fair bit of ad saturation, especially when it comes to the digital advertising space. A couple of thoughts on and perhaps insights on that and how especially these micro and nano influencers, who Partipost is very experienced in dealing with, are perhaps bridging this gap, because you absolutely don't want, especially your micro and nano audiences, shutting off from your influence, so to speak, right?
That's right. So yeah, I think that's one of the big reasons why, my co-founders and I started this company too, and to focus on, the micro, nano, smaller influencers, right? We realized that, the celebrities, the big influencers,
Sure.
I think they're starting to, they do need to make a living as well, right? So they work with a bunch of different brands, but like you said, there's this saturation to some extent, right? And I think what the audiences and the followers want is more authenticity, right? And they want to, if you're following a friend who has 1,000 followers, you're more likely to believe what they recommend, and you also know them personally, right? So if, let's say, I'm following a friend of mine, I know he's an expert, or he loves Italian food, right? And when he posts about something about Italian food, I will trust him more because I know him as a person, right? So I think that's what we've been trying to do with our platform and engaging these micro, nano influencers. It's really about that genuine word of mouth.
So really about sort of building a relationship that focuses on authenticity and trust, because you're getting a direct review as opposed to maybe someone who has a huge profile, maybe above 1 million or even above 100,000. They're likely reviewing something every day, right? So is that the main differential that you see?
That's right. I think that's the main one, and that's the I guess that the thinking and the thesis behind why we started Partipost, right? So I do think this micro, nano influencer, you could call it a trend or something, but I do think it's here to stay. Obviously I'm biased, I'm in the industry, right? But I do think that there's more room, and I've seen the other, markets, the US, China, they have something they call key opinion consumers.
That's right.
KOC, right? So I think that's very similar to, our nano influencers, where you can kind of, so to speak, influence or really, really authentically tell which products, brands you want to work like, right, to your friends. Yeah.
That's right. Let's flip the tables and look at the other side of things, Jonathan, which is the client side. And when it comes to cost effectiveness of engaging with micro, nano influencers rather than the more traditional mainstream public figures or celebrities. And how is it actually balanced then for those micro and nano influencers who also, well, to be completely fair, are definitely trying to make a living from their digital advertising and the sales and the engagement that they get?
Yeah, I think this is one reason why we do have a lot of small, medium businesses, enterprises working with us, because some of these small, medium businesses, they may not have the budget or the marketing dollars to spend on a celebrity, a big influencer, right? But with a smaller budget, they could get a few micro, smaller, nano influencers to kind of, go to their restaurant, try out the product or whatever, and then post about it, right, for a little bit of money. So we are, I think the minimum for us for brands to come work with us is a lot lower, right, than working with the big influencers. And I would say that what our platform does is it allows, a small, medium brand or business, right, and also big brands, to be able to use data to access, 50 influencers to post next week, or 100, right? We have a platform to do that. So it does help a lot of brands save time, and you have to DM or email and reach out to every influencer one by one, right? So that's our, I guess, the problem we're trying to solve with a platform.
Absolutely. That definitely is quite the USP, because when it comes to scouting the talent first and the next step going into engaging them, there's a lot that's involved. So let's talk about the engagement rate. Do you have any figures about what type of engagement rates that clients are actually seeing when they engage these micro, nano influencers vis-a-vis larger celebrity or influencer platforms?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's something we inform our clients a lot about. In terms of engagement rate, I would say the engagement is, the likes, the comments, and all these things that you engage with an influencer's posting. So for a bigger influencer, it could be, around 1%. That was what we call, right, the likes to followers, engagement to followers ratio, right? So if you have 1 million followers, maybe you'll get 1% of that as your engagements, right? So for a, I guess a nano influencer like myself, I don't have a lot of followers, maybe 1,000 or so, right?
Right.
And but I would get maybe 20% or 200 of my friends and followers to, interact and engage with me, right? I think it's more like they're my close friends, right? So they pay more attention to me. Yeah. So, but imagine if there's 1,000 of me versus one big influencer, right? Then the engagement rate is actually higher for these nano micro influencers in totality.
So you're most likely looking at engagement rate that is higher by 6, maybe even 7 times on average per dollar or per ringgit that's spent.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah. So I think not to say working with bigger influencers is not ideal. I think there are still times when engaging a big influencer, maybe fashion brands, maybe high-end products, they do want to align their branding with these bigger influencers and build on their reputation. It's still very useful, and we still work with big influencers, but it's always good to have, a mixture of strategies, right, for marketing in general.
Absolutely. And also, I think there is a huge differential between the type of fast-moving goods, which would be far more suitable and likely for the micro and nano platforms, versus something which would be perhaps a lot more high-end, luxury, or aspirational, where you may get a lot of views, but you're not necessarily going to get a lot of purchases, right?
That's right. That's right. Exactly right.
All right, so moving in from there and digging a little deeper into, we'd of course mentioned the 11/11 big sale period earlier, Jonathan, but I'd like to talk a little bit more about the ways in which enhanced brand recall is actually occurring during festive seasons and how it plays in with the seasonal rush to purchase and make the most of really great deals out there when it comes to digital advertising.
Yeah, I guess what you're asking is specific to more the 11/11 periods or
festive seasons in general. I mean, we're also going to be seeing, of course, Christmas, and of course, there's a little bit of a gap between New Year, then there's Chinese New Year. All of these large trajectories for elevated and increasing in sales. Malaysia, of course, then you have got the Ramadan and Hari Raya period after that, which is also a huge inflection point.
Yeah, those festive periods, not just 11/11, but I think those festive periods, Christmas, Ramadan, they're, I think, overwhelmingly when we get brands, the most inquiries from brands to run campaigns with us, right? And they would want, at times, up to 500 influencers posting in that day or in that before that period. So it's been a very, very crucial and hectic, like I said, for our team, because we want to make sure we help them deliver. And like Shopee and Lazada and all these e-commerce players, right? It gets really, really busy but it's I think very worthwhile for the brands to capitalize on those periods as well.
Exactly. And that speaks of the fact that there will also be specifically catered seasonal campaigns to make the most of personalizing content and also ensuring that you get that word of mouth marketing, so to speak, rolling, right?
That's correct. That's correct. Exactly right.
All right. So thank you so much for the conversation so far, Jonathan. We do take a short break now. We'll be right back with the rest of the discussion on Niaga Spotlight. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Niaga Spotlight. Still with me, Tamina Kausji. And today, of course, we are covering the most interesting topic of digital advertising, looking in particular at Southeast Asia and the Malaysian market and how it's been doing, particularly towards that crucial year-end period. We have Jonathan Egg with us here, founder and CEO with Partipost, and he's had a lot of interesting insights to share in so far. So Jonathan, going deeper into the discussion, now let's look at the angle of building long-term brand consumer relationships and what are some of the trends that Partipost has picked up on, let's say within the space of the past year alone?
Wow, that's a great question. I think I think the keys to working with influencers is not very different than working and engaging your customers, right? So I would say that the key is really about sustained engagement, right? Because we've all seen those one-time posts by influencers. Does it really get people to buy things straight away? I would say not, right? It does take several times to get people to see an ad to get by. And you can compare it to, let's say, Facebook ads or Instagram ads, right? How many times do you see it before you actually click on it?
Very true. I would say, I'm just giving you a ballpark figure here based on my own consumption patterns, anywhere between a dozen to maybe even 20 times before it's just the little annoyance, right, that you actually click on.
Yes, exactly.
Right. Okay.
Some people could be in the
1% or 0.1%, click-through rates, right? So, and similar to influencers, if you, as a business or a brand, if you expect the influencer to post once, right, and then have sales straight away, I think that's really, really hard to say, right? Of course, there's differences like live streaming. That's also a sustainable, consistent, kind of video streaming. It's a bunch of videos, right? So that's a little different. And then you also have to add in mechanics like, oh, if you buy it in this hour, you get something, right? So there's this kind of timeline, deadline things you can do to kind of speed up the sales process. But in essence, I think having sustained engagement with influencers or any channels is really key. And the second thing I think is it kind of becomes like a community, right? So we've been working with our community of micro nano influencers. We have our network in our platform, right?
Right.
And what we do is we believe for some of our clients and our brands that we work with, it's really good to build your own community, right, of micro nano influencers, and they become your biggest spokesperson, to your consumers, right? So we've done, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry?
And I think if I could just interject there to ask a little bit about the customer retention and how that drives profit, meaning which then it becomes something which is actually part of the operational budget, especially for these SMEs and smaller players who nonetheless want to ensure continuity, not just flash in the pan, right, during a big sale season for end of the year.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the example that I would give is, let me see if I can give a more concrete example, which is, let's say you are a Italian small F&B, right? And your brand, your business, and you're looking to engage a few influencers, right? So maybe you can get 4 or 5 micro influencers to go down to your restaurant, try the food out, give a review, and post and tell their friends about it.
Sure.
Let's say I'm following that micro influencer, but I probably won't be compelled to try it straight away, right? Unless there's some offer or something. But imagine if, 2 weeks later, those same influencers go again and say, hey, this is a place I can eat, every 2 weeks. This is great. The value is good. It's near my office. If you guys have your office around here, you should come too. And next time I'm going to bring my friend, right? And the next picture, the next posting, it's the influencer and me posting there, in that restaurant. So it has that story and it has that consistency, and to the follower and the consumer, we actually start believing it more if they really go a lot of times, right? Yeah. So I think then you can see the conversions coming in, and if it's a online store, we also can track it, right, in terms of like promo codes or click-through links, and then we can actually track these stats and then provide value.
Absolutely. And what I'm actually hearing of is that there's a lot of personalized marketing which is going on to build that brand loyalty, and customer retention can actually pay off anywhere between the low 20 percentiles to even 95% more customer loyalty, right? So to get a little more technical then, let's talk about some of the mechanics of post-purchase engagement, which you have seen the client side actually using. I'm talking about things like follow-up emails, loyalty programs. Is this still a focus at the end of 2024, or has this become somewhat just like noise, or is it still an essential part of the way in which clients are operating?
I think it's, I still think there are essential parts to it, right? I think it really depends on the the type of brand profile, and if you're building a community, right, and you're engaging your loyal user base, I do think some of the methods of, collecting vouchers or stickers or coupons, and then if you eat there 10 times, you get a free discount. It still does work, right? And we've seen it, right? One of our clients did a lucky draw, and gave away over $1 million at the end of the year, right? It was crazy.
Wow. All right.
I guess they're not a small company, but they kind of did this giveaway, and we got influencers to participate and talk about it a lot. And it just, even though the prize was a lot, the ROI was a lot more, and the client was super happy with how everything went. So I think these kind of lucky draws, customer loyalty kind of programs, they still work very well, but you have to have the right mixture at the right time.
Yeah, absolutely, because I think it's not just about whether you have put it out there, but also whether people on the customer side of thing are actually treating this right now as everything going into your junk folder in your emails, or something that you're actually clicking on, right? Okay, some great points there. All right, Jonathan, so as we move towards closing out the discussion, I'd like to spend a little time on telling us a little bit more about the evolution of influencer marketing since 2016. So of course, we're already at 2025, and soon it's going to be roughly a decade since the influencer marketing arena first started to emerge as a market. But right now, it's actually a fairly legitimate arena in which to go into to make a living. So tell us something about the trends you've been noticing.
Definitely, yeah. I think when we first started having Partipost as an idea, it was around 2016. And then I think 2017, we started to crystallize it, and then we launched in 2018 in Singapore first, right? So yeah, at that time, I think it was still Facebook, right? And then Instagram, it was still more static postings, pictures, and filtered pictures, things like that. And I think as time went on, videos started to take place, Instagram stories, reels, and now I think over COVID, 2020, TikTok just blew up, right, in multiple markets, right? So yeah, I think it has been changing and evolving every 1 or 2 years, very, very fast. New social medias come and go and rise up. But I mean, of course, for us as a platform, we work with any social media. We work with all types of influencers in Southeast Asia, right? But I do see the trends, especially with AI coming up now, and there's AI influencers, right? Now you don't have to be human to be an influencer now. But having said that, I think that there's still you still need that human element, that creativity, because you can create these bots or AI influencers, but what are they posting about, right? What are the trends? I don't think AI is that mature yet where the creativity can be so unique, on a human level. I don't think we're there yet. Personally, this is a personal opinion, of course, but I think that like technology has made it much easier, right, to scale and find out what works for influencers, what kind of posts work for you as a brand to deliver the highest ROI. So AI has been, a very big thing in influencer marketing.
Absolutely. I would say right now it's still at the stage where perhaps the more savvy influencers, they're most likely using AI to assist with the content creation, reels, and etc. But let's talk a little bit about the fact that when it comes to any bubble that has been expanding and growing in interesting ways and shapes, one has to ask, when is it going to pop? And there are, of course, upcoming regulations for data privacy in particular, such as the introduction of GDPR-like frameworks in various Southeast Asian countries. It's actually going to make this a lot more challenging for advertisers to then collate data and use consumer data for targeted ads. Do you see and do you have any future trends that you would perhaps pitch as of interest for the next 2-3 years to come?
Yeah, I do think it does make it difficult for some of the players that collect data without permission, right? And for us, and I've always kind of had more of an Apple-like stance on this, but for us, I think that privacy means that not that you can't collect the data, but you need to ask for permission for that data, right? If if from that user, right? So for us, and when we collect information about our influencers and their followers, it has to be public data, and or they have to consent to it, right? So a lot of the data that we get about our influencers is data that they submit themselves, right? We know if they have a 2 or 5 year old kid, right? What kind of milk powders do they like to drink, et cetera, et cetera. So this data is all from the questions that we ask influencers, and they're at liberty not to answer if they feel that they don't want to, right? But of course, the more that they answer, the more brands want to work with them, right? For those type of categories. So I think that's how we do it. I do think because of this, it's maybe shifting to this kind of model more so than, you know, oh, let's get data from your phone without your permission, and then we'll target you, right? So I do see in the next 2 or 3 years, there will be a shift as countries and laws get more mature.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the conversation so far, Jonathan. It's been most interesting, and I'd just like to end with noting that global influencer marketing industry is a huge part of the digital advertising sector that has grown. Back in 2016, it was only worth about 1.7 billion USD, and in 2024, it's worth roughly 24.1 billion. So sky really does seem to be the limit, and thanks so much for keeping us up with the trends happening in the landscape. Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
All right. Well, that's all we have time for today on Niaga Spotlight. We'll see you again next Friday with more business and economic analysis and insights. I'm Tamina Kausji. Here's to a productive week ahead.